Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all again, even if it's only virtually. But today I'm going to give a talk on the path of the modern mystic, and I hope you enjoy it. It's based on theosophical teaching, but theosophy just means divine wisdom. So anyone who's on the path of divine wisdom is on the path of theosophy. It's not particularly or specifically something to do with the Theosophical Society. There were other theosophists in the past and societies like the Neoplatonists, the Sufis, the Vedantins, the esoteric Buddhists, and other organizations and individuals who followed the path of theosophy. The Theosophical Society is the latest incarnation of theosophy. So let's breathe out any tension. Let's just relax. Let's be at peace. Let's be tranquil. Remember, tuning mind and breath. The mind should be calm and tranquil. The breath should also be calm and tranquil and silent. Just breathing gently, breathing out tension. Every out breath, a little more tension goes. As I've said before, in meditation, we have to be aware of oblivion, into a state of oblivion, or a state of distraction. Just keep centered in that divine center, that inmost sanctuary that we all have, that we all share. The calm in the center of the storm, the eye of the storm. Breathe out any tension now. Be relaxed. So, brothers and sisters, the path of the modern mystic. So the title of this talk comes from the Mahatma letters to A.P. Sinnott, letter 2. He who would lift up high the banner of mysticism and proclaim its reign near at hand must give the example to others. He must be the first to change his modes or her modes of life. And regarding the study of the occult mysteries as the upper step in the ladder of knowledge, must loudly proclaim it such despite exact science and the opposition of society. The kingdom of heaven is obtained by force, say the Christian mystics. It is but with armed hand and ready to either conquer or perish that the modern mystic can hope to achieve his object. Well, so this sets us a very high ideal, and not many of us can say we have the hardihood to follow it at this moment in our lives. But it is also inspiring and gives us something to aim for. The Bhagavad Gita urges us to center our attention on Krishna as the highest self. We have to make that our line of life meditation. In this highly materialistic and noisy society, it is difficult to center ourselves in this real self and hear the still small voice of our conscience. So what must we do? Earlier in the same letter just quoted from the Master KH, he says, the adept is the rare efflorescence of a generation of enquirers. And to become one, he must obey the inward impulse of his soul, irrespective of the prudential considerations of worldly science or sagacity. Again, I said we may be a long way from being adepts, or some of us perhaps, but we should be gradually be at least trying to follow this advice at our own particular level of understanding. So this is the way the modern mystic has to travel, the path he has to travel, to listen to the dictates of our inner self, despite what the world throws at us, to maintain our equilibrium amidst the turmoil of so-called civilization. This is why we need to train, to study, and to meditate. So the general view of mystics is that they believe and practice a direct communion with the higher natures, whether they refer to this as God or use some other name. Damodar K. Mavalanka, an early member of the society, writes, "Words can merely clothe the ideas, but no number of words can convey an idea to one who is incapable of perceiving it. Every one of us has within him or her the latent capacity or a sense dormant in us which can take cognizance of abstract truth. Although the development of that sense, or more correctly speaking, the assimilation of our intellect with that higher sense may vary in different persons according to circumstances, education, and discipline. That higher sense, which is the potential capacity of every human being, is in eternal contact with reality. And every one of us has experienced moments when, being for the time en rapport with that higher sense, we realize the eternal verities. The sole question is how to focalize ourselves entirely in that higher sense. That's the task, to focalize ourselves entirely in that higher sense. So it's like Plato saying that all true learning is merely recollection. We limit ourselves by misunderstanding what we really are in essence. A theosophical based mystic has an advantage over the sectarian one, who will always clothe any experience they have in the language of their particular religion. Although, on a higher level, the experience is just the same. When they have to try to explain what they have experienced, they will revert to imagery that the lower mind understands. So they will say that they have seen God or Jesus or Krishna or the Buddha or whatever. So one of the great advantages of this theosophical training, as I've said, is that we can dissociate ourselves from any kind of dogmatism and see things as they are. How far each one of us has gone along that road will determine how we translate any experiences. But really, these experiences are beyond any words and any chance of explaining accurately. Books like The Voice of the Silence, The Light on the Path, the Bhagavad Gita, Secret of the Golden Flower, etc., the Buddhist sutras, the Upanishads, the Vedas, they all give us pointers and guidance. But in the end, we have to progress by self-devised and self-induced efforts. We are the way and the truth and the light. So what problems does the modern mystic have as he or she tries to focus the attention in that higher self? Well, today's society is very much one of communication on a very basic level. We have iPhones, tablets, PCs, as well as TV, magazines, and immediately we step into a town or city, we are bombarded with advertisements for this and for that, and shops are pressing us more and more to gain custom. It is a wonder that we find a space in our lives and minds to contemplate anything higher. This is why the Masters recommended that we take the kingdom of heaven by force. If by force it means perseverance, and also learning to be in the world, but not of it. We have to learn to find that calm within the center of the storm. The way is not to retire into a cave and isolate oneself from society, although it is good to get away for periods to recharge our batteries and to let nature speak to us. But generally, we must burn away our passions, fears, and doubts in the fires caused by the friction between ourselves and others, and therefore gradually overcome this great dire heresy of separateness that weans us from the rest. H.P. Blavatsky says, "He who would profit by the wisdom of the universal mind has to reach it through the whole of humanity without distinction of race, complexion, religious or social status. And the new race will be born from the intermixing of different cultures. That's why it's so important that we have a diverse society composed of a number of nationalities and different cultures. This is because everyone has the same origin and the same goal. We must learn to love all beings, and particularly our fellow humans. And this is hard, given some of the terrible things that go on in the world. But we as a society have created the conditions that give rise to all this violence that goes on around us. We have created Frankenstein's monster, and now it is turning on us. We have played God without wisdom or compassion. But deep within this apparent chaos, the self, the true self, watches and waits. It is changeless, and if we fight our way through to it, our whole being is flooded with a calm that is communicated to every living being, because we are all one with everyone and everything else. And we need to overcome this great heresy of separateness. We can see from reading works like The Crest Jewel of Wisdom and many others that great souls throughout the ages have realized this and have comprehended the limitations of what we call life. Consciousness nowadays is mainly focused on the lower aspects of our being. And that is why we often feel lonely, insecure, and afraid. The Victorian Orientalist, Professor Max Muller, writes, "In the hymns of the Vedas, man invokes the gods around him. He praises and worships them, but still, with all these gods beneath him, the early poet seems ill at ease within himself. There too, in his own breast, he has discovered a power never absent when he fears and trembles. It seems to inspire his prayers, and yet to listen to them. It seems to live in him, and yet support him and all around him. The only name he can find for this mysterious power is Brahman." So the power is within us. And is it not true that despite the gods we have made of money, sensuality, and material possessions, that we are still uneasy within ourselves? We still crave that self that remains harmonious despite the turmoil. Do we not seek the inner light to guide us, the still small voice of our inner selves? Is this not something worth fighting for, especially if we realize that our victory pours beneficence on the whole world? This is because, as H.P. Blavatsky says, no man or woman can rise superior to his individual failings without lifting, be it ever so little, the whole body of which he or she is an integral part. In the same way, no one can sin nor suffer the effects of sin alone. In reality, there is no such thing as separateness, and the nearest approach is in the intent and motive. Desire is of the lower mind and drags us deeper into matter, but will, of a spiritual kind, is connected to the higher aspects of our mind and leads us towards the spiritual realms of existence and beyond. H.P. Blavatsky wrote concerning this, "Will is the exclusive possession of man on this our plane of consciousness. It divides him from the brute, in whom instinctive desire only is active. Desire in its widest application is the one creative force in the universe. In this sense, it is indistinguishable from will, but we men never know desire under this form, while we remain only men. Therefore, will and desire are here considered as opposed. Thus, will is the offspring of the divine, the God in man. Desire, the motive power of the animal life. Most of men live in and by desire, mistaking it for will. But he who would achieve must separate will from desire and make his will the ruler. For desire is unstable and ever-changing, while will is steady and constant. Both will and desire are absolute creators, forming the man himself and his surroundings. But will creates intelligently, desire blindly and unconsciously. The man therefore makes himself in the image of his desires, unless he creates himself in the likeness of the divine, through his will, the child of the light. His task is twofold: to awaken the will, to strengthen it by use and conquest, to make it absolute ruler within his body, and parallel with this, to purify desire. Knowledge and will are the tools for the accomplishment of this purification. Knowledge and will. So, of course, knowledge is, of course, true knowledge that logs itself into the higher part of our nature and breaks down all the imaginary barriers between ourselves and the universal self. It is an erroneous focusing of thoughts that makes us imagine that we are separate from all else. What is thought? Think about that. Where does it come from? Where is it going? Think about desire. On a lower level, it is always for those things that help to increase the illusion of the personal self, the I and them, or the us and them scenario. The true mystic will only desire on a higher level, or will to merge him or herself into the supreme self, and to therefore realize the divinity of all things. This is where real compassion springs from, the ability to identify with the joys and sufferings of humanity without becoming engulfed by them, and to realize what a universal brotherhood really is in its purest sense. Political brotherhoods are always unsteady, like building a house on shifting sands, whereas a brotherhood based on spirituality is like building one's house on rock, where it is stable. It is a refocusing of our consciousness and a steady centering of that consciousness on the true self, and this constitutes true meditation. And it is something that eventually needs to be carried on 24 hours a day as we go about our daily business. It has to make us aware of the transitory nature of the physical world around us. In the light of the spirit, the fear of death is removed, and life becomes worth living, if only for the experiences that it gives to us. These we label good or bad, but if looked at rightly, they are all helping us to develop, so long as we have the right attitude to life and its experiences. The idea of meditation becomes clearer if we take on board the Theosophical definition of meditation, which is the inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go out towards the infinite. And the true mystic will reflect on the words of Shankaracharya in the Crest Jewel of Wisdom. O thou high-minded one, pass thy time in the perception of the real self everywhere, reflecting on the non-dual self and realizing true bliss. To attribute changefulness to the Atman, who is indestructible wisdom, and changeless, is like building a castle in the air. Therefore, always attain great peace through the Atman, who is full of non-dual bliss, and keep silence. So this is the way for anyone who would follow the mystical path to reach a state in which they are truly centered. And this is to give everything up to that true self. This is true devotion. And it is a devotion to that part of us that is unchanging and that we share with everyone. Therefore, it is a devotion to humanity. The path of the mystic returns us to the natural and to the spontaneity of our deepest feelings. It is like the Zen monk who went for a walk one evening. Suddenly, the clouds parted and he saw the moon, and he let out a laugh that could be heard for miles. Do we not feel like that sometimes when we see or hear something beautiful, something uplifting, something inspiring? Do we not feel like laughing for the wonder of it all? But because of the restraints of society and our conditioning, we deny our natural feelings and pretend to be something we are not. There is nothing weird about mysticism. It is a return to our original nature, a return to innocence. We read in many traditions about becoming like little children to really understand. And many of us try to retain these feelings as we grow older. We try to keep the spontaneous feelings beautifully illustrated in the example of the Zen monk that I've just mentioned, the Zen monk and the moon. But for most of us, a struggle to retain these feelings becomes a fight to regain them. We are told that a gradual coarsening of our natures is a part of the process of becoming adult. Films, TV, and literature that contain foul language, explicit sex, and violence are said to be designed for the grown-up. And society in general accepts this. Of course, in a way it's true, because you wouldn't expose children to those kind of things. But it's not following a spiritual path. An early theosophical letter from the Mahachohan warns that the materialistic intellectual morally ruins those they ought to protect and guide. And this is as bad as, if not worse, than ever. We must indeed become like little children, as the singer Judy Zook says in one of her songs, and I've mentioned this in another talk, about Wonderland, I think. If we all believe in Wonderland, why do we make it such a hell? If we all believe in Wonderland, how come it's lies we tell? Do we still believe in miracles? If we can only find the key, could it be there's a Wonderland? Please God, there's got to be. What we need to do is to gain confidence in the power of the Spirit and to understand that it is this that is needed in society, as material and political changes are never permanent. H.P. Blavatsky wrote in an article, The New Cycle, "This spirit is a force that cannot be checked or stopped. Those who recognize and feel that this is the supreme moment of their salvation will be carried by it beyond the illusions of the great astral serpent. The bliss they will feel will be so sharp and so keen that were they not in spirit detached from their bodies of flesh, this beatitude would wound them like a sharpened blade. It is not pleasure they will feel, but a bliss which is a foretaste of the wisdom of the gods, of the knowledge of good and evil, and of the fruits of the tree of life. Later in the same article, she says that these words are for the mystically inclined only. If these mystically inclined can grasp the truth and beauty of the spiritual life and live constantly under the guidance of their divine self, then indeed will dawn the day of joy and gladness for humanity. As H.P. Blavatsky puts it, as was said earlier, we cannot live independently of anyone else. It always amuses me when people say, I want to be independent. So they rent or buy a flat that someone else provides for them. They get their groceries from a supermarket provided by others, and their clothes and household items from shops. So it is almost impossible to be independent. Even if you go and live in a cave and grow your own food, etc., it is still nature that provides. So we have the power to consecrate. And if we are mystically inclined, our main task should be to develop that true love within our hearts that can bring about a heaven on earth and a return symbolically to the Garden of Eden. To do this, we have to find the beauty in the midst of the storm. We have to discover the magical dimension to our being that is unaffected by all of life's trials and tribulations. We have to learn the secret of silence. Silence is all-powerful and pregnant with meaning to those who are aware. When it comes to helping someone in distress, it is often the silence that communicates the healing power. Words and images can sometimes divide, as we are finding now. A feeling of joy can be passed to someone who is suffering, and no matter what that person's belief, it is equally effective. But if you were to tell an evangelical Christian that you had used an ancient Tibetan Buddhist method of meditation to communicate peace to them, they would be shocked, and immediately all the good effects would be lost. They would then probably accuse you of being in league with the devil. In such cases, beliefs don't matter. They are secondary. Compassion is what is needed. All else comes after. We must remember also that the spiritual path is one of great beauty and joy. There are many warnings in our books, and the pessimist may dwell on these, but the optimist will take note of them, but focus on the positive side. If we think of the path as heavy and hard, we also become heavy and hard. And that is all we can give to others. No matter how much we talk about reincarnation and karma, brotherhood and morality, we're in fact only communicating doom and gloom if our attitude isn't right. Brotherhood and morality are essential things, but we must try to live them to the best of our ability. We can't immediately become wonderful beings, but we can do little things and do our best at our own level. And if we see the path as one of light, then this is what shines from us, even if we are just talking about the weather. It's something beyond words. This is because we are, each one of us, the way, the truth, and the light. As I said, we are the path. It is not something outside of us. All the teachings are within us. Books and teachings from masters can only awaken us to that fact. We need guides to build up an intellectual understanding and to help arm us against the many dangers that we have to face. But in the end, it is only our own experience that counts for anything. If we want to communicate with higher beings, we have to become centers of spiritual energy, radiating outwards constantly for the good of all. Again, I must say that the only way to really survive in the world is to find that spirit within. Find your true self. Earthly loves may pass or fail. Worldly joys will fade in time. Even pain has its end. All things must pass, but the spirit endures through the good and the bad times, as we designate them, and the harmony of the universe is reflected in our hearts as love, and this is permanent in this manifested universe. Shakespeare puts it very well in Sonnet 116. Let me not, to the marriage of true minds, admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. So love bears it out even to the edge of doom. Remember that. Some of you may be tempted to think, what has all this to do with us, with our day-to-day lives? Well, it has everything to do with us as citizens of this planet Earth. We have lost sight of the true dignity of human nature, the fact that we are in reality spiritual beings, and that the material world that we have made is fast becoming a hell on earth. This is due only to mankind. Nature itself has no malice. We have things like earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, etc., which claim many lives. That is just the workings of nature. And how do we know how much of that is not caused by the negative energy set in motion by the discordant thoughts of humanity as a whole, or by the destruction of nature by man causing this imbalance? Much negative energy going about at the moment. Destructive vibrations. We know what vibrations can do if you think of, for example, a singer who can shatter glass by high frequency. So the vibrations can have destructive effects. We only have to pick up the newspaper or turn on the TV to read of some tragedy somewhere in the world, perpetrated in the name of an imaginary God or for some political belief. The Theosophical Masters state, our doctrine knows no compromises. It either affirms or denies, for it never teaches but that which it knows to be the truth. Therefore, we deny God, both as philosophers and as Buddhists. We know that there are planetary and other spiritual lives, and we know there is in our system no such thing as God, either personal or impersonal. Parabrahm is not a God, but absolute immutable law, and Ishvar is the effect of avidya and maya. Avidya, ignorance. Maya is, of course, illusion. Ignorance based on the great delusion. The God of the theologians is simply an imaginary power, un loup garou, as Holbach expressed it, a power which has never manifested itself. Our chief aim is to deliver humanity of this nightmare, to teach man virtue for its own sake, and to walk in life relying on himself instead of leaning on a theological crutch that for countless ages was the direct cause of nearly all human misery. Very interesting words, of course. We're talking, of course, now about the traditional view of God that the Christians and the Muslims tend to teach, not upon the divine power that's within each one of us or the divine power in the universe. Well, they don't like to use the word God because it has too many negative connotations. Later they say that 2/3 of the world's evil is a result of organized religion, the other third being selfishness. On another level, we read of someone being killed for the sake of a few pounds or for little reason at all. This shows that we as a society have lost the true meaning of life and cannot relate to each other as spiritual beings with love and compassion. What I'm saying today is of vital importance to all of us on this planet, because we need to get back to the teachings in the Sermon on the Mount and the Dhammapada and other scriptures and learn to love our enemies, bless those that curse us, and pray for those that despitefully use us. For hatred never ceased by hatred. Hatred only ceases by love. This is the eternal law. Too long have we been indoctrinated with the idea that we are weak, miserable sinners. Even though most people would deny being religious nowadays, we have still been tainted with this doctrine. It is in the collective consciousness of us on this planet, or certainly in this country, in the UK. That is why so many people suffer from guilt and feel depressed at times. The materialistic society that we live in, the obsession with material goods, does not feed the spirit, does not satisfy the soul hunger, and does not encourage the inexpressible yearning of the inner man or woman to go out towards the infinite. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. The Zen poet Isa says in a haiku, "Sitting under shady trees, resting with a butterfly, even this is karma." Sitting under shady trees, resting with a butterfly, even this is karma. So even us sitting now, listening to this talk together, but separate in one way, but together in others, is karma. Karma brought you to this seat where you're sitting now listening to this. Karma brought me here to speak. Nothing happens by chance, as far as we can understand. We have all taken a step, whether the first, second, 100th, or 1,000th, or maybe the last for some, if there ever is a last. We are all divine beings, gods and goddesses in the making. And at the center of that being is the bliss that lies at the heart of the universe. But we have forgotten. We've forgotten. As I mentioned earlier, Plato says that all true learning is merely recollection. Just remembering who or what we are is the path. Awakening. Words won't save us. Concepts won't free us. Only remembering who or what we are will. If we want a golden age back on Earth, we really need to want it. The Theosophical writer Raghavan Iyer states, according to Hindu calculations, Kali Yuga, which I've mentioned in other talks, began over 5,000 years ago and will last altogether for a total of 432,000 years. This dark age is characterized by widespread confusion of roles, inversion of ethical values, and enormous suffering owing to spiritual blindness. A.E., he's talking about George William Russell, an Irish theosophist in the early days, Victorian days, celebrated the myth of the Golden Age as extolling the plenitude of man's creative potential. The doctrine of the yugas is not deterministic. It merely suggests the relative levels of consciousness which most human beings tend to hold in common. Thus, a golden age vibration can be inserted into an iron age to ameliorate the collective predicament of mankind. The golden age surrounded human beings as a primordial state of divine consciousness, but their own pride and ignorance precluded its recovery. In the wonder of childhood, in archaic myths, in the sporadic illuminations of great artists and in mystical visions, one may discern shimmering glimpses of the golden age of universal eros, the rightful original estate of humanity. Well, it is possible to insert these golden age vibrations into the heart of humanity. St. Francis of Assisi said, "Let there be peace, and let it begin with me." That is very important, taking into account that we are all one. The suffering and joy of the world is ours. We are our brother's keepers. This is the teaching of all the world's great mystics, such as Jesus, Gautama Buddha, Krishna, Plato, Pythagoras, even H.P. Blavatsky as well, and lots of other beings in between. So to recap, we have to try to awaken ourselves and others to our divine nature, to our natural being. We have to awaken from the dream to see reality. We need to learn to promote the spiritual man or woman and not the animal that is so predominant in the society at the moment. We are so much more than we think we are. We have gained something very precious on our journey, and that is self-awareness. The ability to take our progress in hand and proceed by self-induced and self-devised methods and efforts. And we are able to communicate, to contemplate the world on a higher level and realize that we are multi-dimensional beings according to the teachings of all the great world's teachers, all the great spiritual teachers of the world. And we should strive towards that understanding, each to the limits of his or her ability, always striving to reach higher. The Bhagavad Gita says that all true knowledge reduces ignorance to ashes, and the only knowledge that means anything is that which awakens us to a realization of our true nature. This is because it is the only knowledge that remains with us permanently through all of our lives. The essential thing is to hold on to the permanent, despite all the changes that we go through inwardly and outwardly. That is the talisman. To become the eye of the storm, as said, when we need to. Then we can begin to recover an enlightened faith in the power of that spirit. We have made the material things around us seem indispensable, but we have made them this way, and they clutter up our minds and lives. We lose sight of some of the natural things in life that are free. So busy are many people with their heads buried in their mobile phones and in the sand, metaphorically, of course. So there's a nice poem that I like by William Henry Davis, which many of you may know. It goes like this. What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A pure life they live, full of care. We have no time to stand and stare. Society cannot be made good through legislation, but by true education, by inspiration, and by being shown a better way to live. We think we are separate, but we all see the world through our own eyes. Does this not give us a clue to the oneness of all things? The world seen through just one pair of eyes. Think on that. So let's banish the fear of death from our collective consciousness. There is no death, just everlasting life. So let us see only transformation, awakening from our sleep. Remember the Chinese saying from Chuang-Tzu, who dreamt he was a butterfly, and when he awoke, didn't know whether he was a man dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was a man. There is so much deep meaning in that. We are all dreamers. Let us awaken at last. Thank you very much for listening. Om Shanti, 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 peace, 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 peace on earth and goodwill to all beings.